This is defense domain. In-depth analysis on global security, military strategy, and emerging technologies. NSS 2025 resets the transatlantic security equation. It replaces an order-driven strategy with an interest-based framework. This is not a gradual shift. It is a structural recalibration of United States strategic posture. At the core of this change is a move towards sovereignty, economic leverage, border integrity. Global stewardship is no longer the organizing principle. Turning to the strategic foundation. The previous model positioned the United States as the defender of a rules-based international order. NSS 2025 narrows that role. Strategy is now centered on national interest, resource protection, and selective engagement. This reorientation directly affects the transatlantic system. Europe's position shifts. It is no longer the strategic centerpiece. Instead, it becomes a regional security actor, expected to carry greater responsibility. At the same time, NATO is redefined. It remains central, but its internal logic changes. It becomes a performance-based platform, rather than a community built on shared identity. Turning to the key structural shifts. The first shift is from global stewardship to interest-driven strategy. The United States no longer defines itself as the manager of global order. It focuses on sovereignty, industrial strength, and national autonomy. The second shift is from alliance-centric globalism to transactional burden sharing. Allies are expected to increase defense spending significantly. Targets approach 5% of gross domestic product. Alliances become mechanisms for cost redistribution, not just force multiplication. The third shift is the reversal of the normative agenda. Climate policy, democracy promotion, governance frameworks. These are no longer central. They are replaced by energy dominance, migration control, economic competition. Turning to the resulting structural impact. Strategic cohesion across the Atlantic weakens. Threat perceptions begin to diverge. Alliance behavior becomes conditional. Performance replaces alignment as the key metric. Turning to threat hierarchy reconstruction. The United States compresses its threat framework. China becomes the central focus, primarily through economic and technological competition. Russia is repositioned, not as an immediate threat, but as a potential stabilizing factor. This reflects a strategic calculation. Reducing pressure in Europe allows the United States to concentrate resources elsewhere. At the same time, new priorities emerge. Mass migration, cartel activity, influence operations in the Western Hemisphere, industrial sovereignty, energy supply security. These redefine what is considered strategic risk. Turning to alliance transformation. NSS 2025 introduces a transactional alliance model. Allies are expected to assume primary responsibility for their regions. The United States reallocates resources toward the Western Hemisphere and the Indo-Pacific. Multilateral institutions are used selectively, only when they support national interests. Burden sharing becomes enforceable. The expectation of defense spending near 5% of gross domestic product signals this shift clearly. The United States assumes a supervisory role. It acts as system architect, managing coordination, maintaining escalation control. Allies provide conventional force mass and regional deterrence. Turning to Europe's repositioning. Europe is no longer treated as the central pillar of global strategy. It is viewed as important, but not prioritized. It is also described as vulnerable, particularly on migration and governance challenges. This reframing changes the foundation of the transatlantic relationship. Europe must now self-insure. Turning to the implications for the transatlantic system. Strategically, integration gives way to regionalization. The United States focuses on higher return theaters. Europe is expected to manage its own deterrence environment. At the same time, the United States retains high-end enablers. These include intelligence systems, strategic lift, cyber and space capabilities, integrated missile defense, and the nuclear umbrella. This creates a layered system. The United States provides the strategic backbone. Europe provides the operational mass. Turning to political consequences. The new strategy introduces friction, differences over migration, climate policy, governance models. These tensions may reshape relations between Washington and European institutions. Alliance cohesion becomes more complex. Turning to military consequences. The United States reduces forward presence. It prioritizes enablement over deployment. European states are expected to increase defense spending, accelerate modernization, expand industrial production. This reflects a long-standing capability gap, now formalized into strategic expectation. The United States transitions from force provider to system orchestrator. It maintains control over nuclear deterrence and high-end capabilities, while allies assume responsibility for conventional defense. Turning to future scenarios, the next decade presents two possible trajectories. The first is fragmentation. This emerges if tensions increase, if defense industrial capacity fails to scale, if political divisions deepen. The result is a fragmented system, with overlapping and competing coalitions. The second is adaptation. This requires increased European defense investment, industrial consolidation, strategic consistency from the United States. In this scenario, the system becomes more distributed, but also more resilient. Turning to the final assessment, NSS 2025 resets the operating logic of Western security. The United States narrows its exposure, but maintains strategic control. Europe must expand capability and assume greater responsibility. The future of the transatlantic system depends on execution, strategic discipline, industrial capacity, and the ability to adapt to a new division of roles. This was a defense domain analysis. For more detailed assessments, visit defensedomain.com. Stay informed, stay strategic.